Awesome. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our February virtual Lunch and Learn program for our LGBTQ Workplace Alliance, which is a special program of the Greater Houston LGBTQ Plus Chamber of Commerce. I do want to recognize that we have friends joining us from all across Texas today. So we want to take a moment and thank you for joining us. If you are a partner of one of our uh, partner chambers across Texas, we welcome you to join us. My name is Ryan Wilson. I use he, him pronouns. I am the Director of Corporate Relations for the Greater Houston LGBTQ Plus Chamber. I also want to acknowledge we have several of my colleagues on this call. We will be hearing later from our co-founder, President and CEO, Tammy Wallace. We also have our Executive Administrator, Maureen Maori, who is managing the Zoom room. So if you need any assistance, please feel free to message myself or the Chamber's uh, account, or actually you'll see Maureen's name there on Zoom and you can message her. Um, Throughout today's program, feel free to drop any questions, although I will make a note that today's session is being recorded, except for when we get to our Q&A portion, which we will pause the recording to create a space for folks to speak freely. And then lastly, I just want to acknowledge my colleague Delia Williams is also with us today, and she's helping us out in our communications work. Um, Today's speaker is special guest, Marcos Garcia. If you want to go to the next slide, Marcos is Deputy Director of the Workplace Equality Program at the Human Rights Campaign Foundation, and we will be hearing from him in a moment. We really thank folks for joining us for this really timely and important conversation. But before we jump into the program, I did just want to give folks a little bit about our chamber if you're not familiar with the Houston Chamber. We say we work at the intersection of business and the LGBT community here in the greater Houston area, serving all the surrounding counties around Houston. And we also know that Houston plays an important place in the national conversation with a number of corporations that have headquarters here, but also beyond the US, Canada, Mexico, Australia. I know we have folks joining us from some of those companies today. Next slide. So our LGBTQ Workplace Alliance program is something we specifically reserve for what we call our impact partners. Those are our major employers who have more than 100 employees in their companies. And we really are focusing in on creating spaces and learning opportunities for those folks who are doing LGBTQ inclusion work and DEI work within their companies. So those could be business or employee resource groups, or also folks in the HR or supplier diversity space as well. We're here to support you and create opportunities for best practice sharing like today's webinar. Next slide. I do want to highlight our calendar of events, which you can go to the Chamber's website or you can scan the QR code. And I also want to give a shout out to our sponsors for for this whole year. Our Workplace Alliance program is sponsored by both HP and HEB, which is celebrating 25 years of DEI work, and they're very proud of their commitment to DEI, and we'll hear more about companies like them in the program today. Next slide. A couple of upcoming events that you might not want to miss. For our Houston folks, we are doing a Workplace Alliance social at Stages Houston, which is one of the Chamber's nonprofit and arts members. They have a special show, Dixie's Tupperware Party, and we'll be gathering before that event for a social opportunity for folks to meet and network through the impact partners of the Houston Chamber. Our next BERG Leadership Roundtable will be hosted by HP at their spring offices on April 23rd. And then we will have another virtual lunch and learn like this one in May. We'll be focusing on how to fight stigma around HIV through BERG programming. We have guests from the HIV, the Houston Business Action to End HIV will be speaking to us for that one. And along with today's webinar and some of our other past virtual programming, you can check those out at the Chamber's YouTube page. Next slide. Couple more things. On March 9th, we have the Walk to End HIV. We're encouraging all of our impact partners sign up for a team as your BERG. Get your colleagues together to walk, or if you would like to walk with the chamber, we have our own team, and we'll be marching and we'll be encouraging folks wear your company branding and come out and march with us as we raise money for Allies in Hope, which is one of the chamber's nonprofit members doing really important HIV prevention work in Houston. Next slide. Everyone in Texas is invited to the Chamber Day at the Capitol coming up on March 24th and 25th. This is an effort by all of our chambers here in Texas, the LGBT chambers, to bring folks out to the Capitol in Austin, have your voice heard both as an individual and if you're able to engage with folks from your company, like your government affairs folks, let them know about the date and encourage them to come out. Registration links should be going up on our calendars very soon. And this year's theme is Inclusive Economy, Stronger for Texas. Next slide. Two more things the Chamber has going on coming up. We're about to launch our Show Your Pride campaign for 2025. Thank you to our sponsor, HP. This campaign has been a huge success across the Houston region as folks get your portrait taken and share a few words about what pride means to you. Those photos end up on those smart kiosks you'll see around at bus stops. And even we have a commitment again this year from our partners at the Houston Dynamo, Houston Dash, to put some of those photos on the side of Shell Energy Stadium during Pride Month. So look out for opportunities for photo shoots all around the region. And also, if you're interested in having a special photo shoot for your company, you can sponsor that. Feel free to reach out to me or check out Show Your Pride's website for more information. And last slide. And then our big event of the year, our signature event, is coming up on June 6th with the Pride in Business Celebration and Awards. It'll be at the Hilton Americas. And this year we'll be celebrating 10 years of marriage equality with special guest Jim Obergefell, who was the Supreme Court plaintiff that actually helped bring marriage equality to Texas and across the country. All right, so enough of that housekeeping for this morning. I do want to turn it over to Tammy Wallace, next slide, our co-founder, president, and CEO, to kind of help set the stage for today's conversation, particularly with all the news we have going on in the world and some of the things we're hearing from our partners. I wanted Tammy to sort of help kick us off this morning or afternoon.
As it were. Well, Ryan, thank you so much. And thank you for your leadership with the LGBTQ plus Workplace Alliance program and all you're doing for the Chamber. Ryan's been an incredible asset for us, having joined just a little over a year ago. And today's discussion, the information that's going to be presented by Marcos, this is just another example of bringing relevant information to our impact partners. It's timely, and I want you to all, as you think about, I'm sure thinking about the title, Staying the Course, was relevant as you're thinking about what DEI and DEI commitments look like inside your companies. We are committed at the Chamber to continuing our work forward under the Workplace Alliance program and in the region, and we are going to stay the course. And we know that you're leading inside your companies and you intend to work from a leadership frame to stay the course and work inside your companies to continue to push policies, to continue to push LGBTQ plus inclusion. And we know that's not always easy. What I would say is all that we are looking at right now as a community, for us at the Chamber, for us in Houston and in the region and across the state. It is every time we come together like this, whether it's one of our smaller events or coming together during Pride Month, this Workplace Alliance event, please know that it is an act of resilience, an act of resilience to be together into community, to support, to gain tools, to learn how you can continue to put one foot in front of the other. And also, so you can begin to understand, and Marcos is going to share some great framing today about historical context. This is not the first time our community has been through difficult challenges. We have seen this through the AIDS crisis. We saw this with the start of our movement at Stonewall. So historically, We have been through challenges for decades. We continue to persevere. We are a resilient community and we will move forward. So that is why we are so excited to share this information with you to help bring that framing and certainly the lens with HRC, who has been an incredible partner with us at the Chamber. So I hope you all take everything in and know that the Chamber is here to support you in any way and in your efforts, both professionally and through the engagement with your company. Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. And now, without further ado, I do want to introduce Marcus Garcia from HRC Foundation. I've had the honor of working with Marcos for more than a decade, both at my time working at HRC and now here at the Chamber. And we're in for a real treat because Marcos really understands the work and the moment that we find ourselves in. And so I'm going to turn it over to Marcos to present some slides and give us some information and data, and then we'll have a slide conversation before we open it up to Q&A afterwards. So Marcos, take it away.
Good afternoon, folks. Hi, I'm so happy to be here with you. Just getting my screen ready to share. Hi, everyone. As Ryan mentioned, it is a pleasure for me to be here with you all. My name is Marcos Garcia. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Workplace Equality Program. And in that capacity, I lead our Corporate Equality Index. For folks who may not know, it's our national benchmarking tool on LGBTQ plus inclusion. So I'm happy to talk a bit about it today and to have this conversation about staying the course. I think Tammy, you and Ryan have both set this up really well about this vital and just incredible moment that we're in. So I'm happy to just share a little bit of data and have to be in conversation with Ryan to discuss the importance of staying the course and continuing to do this work in workplace inclusion. So to start off with and share a little bit about the CEI, the Corporate Equality Index has been around, and I should also mention, thank you, Ryan, for mentioning that. If you folks have questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat. I'll try my best to kind of navigate watching the chat and also presenting at the same time, but also we'll have time again at the end of this webinar to go through questions. As Ryan mentioned, we'll shut off the recording so that folks, if you have questions that are more sensitive, we can answer them without them being recorded. But the CEI has been around for over 20 years now, and it has really been the leading benchmark for LGBTQ plus workplace inclusion. And our main purpose, since it started in 2002, was to help LGBTQ plus individuals fight the fear of discrimination in the workplace. We knew that there was an inability for trans folks to access healthcare and for LGBT folks to access healthcare if they were in domestic partnerships and other relationships. And then also just a confusion in understanding where their employer stood in LGBTQ plus support. And so throughout these over 20 years, the CEI has served as a roadmap for companies to assist them in increasing their LGBTQ plus workplace inclusion. But we know that this work is actually happening in a space and time that is not ideal. Anti-DEI campaigns have intensified in the past few years, and over the past 6 to 9 months, we've seen, our anti-DEI detractors increase their effort, and we're almost a month into the current administration, and we're seeing actions happening there that I won't discuss in this workshop right now, but these anti-DEI efforts have been bolstered by judicial and legislative moves that have been made. But we know that DEI rollbacks are bad for business, right? Research out of the BCG, Boston Consulting Group, has found that companies that have diverse teams have 19% more revenue. And so participation in the CEI signals a commitment to cultivating a workplace that attracts and retains top talent from diverse backgrounds. And with close to 30% of Gen Z individuals identifying as LGBTQ+, and $1.4 trillion with a T in buying power, we know that workplace inclusion is essential. And so, despite what we're hearing, we know that workplace inclusion is essential, and we have wonderful partners in the corporate space. You can see some of their quotes here that also kind of share that diversity and inclusion is good for business. And we're thrilled to have some leaders speaking out about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and really promoting that workplace inclusion is here to stay, and that we should stay the course in this work. From HRC's perspective, we are, meeting the moment. And these are kind of, as you can see on the screen, the key areas that we're focusing on as we approach this time. First of all, is to deepen our partnerships and collaborations. We're really in partnership and collaboration with senior leaders at all of our participating companies in the CEI and other corporate partners. Just as a little bit of background on the Corporate Equality Index, we only work with, in the CEI survey, companies with over 500 US employees that are for profit. But there are a wealth of other companies that have less than 500 employees, or perhaps maybe not for profit, that are interested in advocating for DEI and this work. So we work with quite a few companies and executives at these companies to ultimately, continue this work of LGBTQ plus workplace inclusion. Another component is to dispel misinformation. A lot of what we're hearing in the field is just incorrect information about the CEI. One thing that I'll repeat in every call that I have, and I'll say here on this workshop, is that the CEI does not create any preferential treatment for LGBTQ plus folks. It's about meeting, and providing benefits and policies that allow LGBTQ plus folks to gain equal access, be it to healthcare or to other benefits, so that they can access the same benefits and policies and practices that other non-LGBTQ plus folks can access. The next is to lift supportive voices. And I'll share in our CEI 2025 report how we do this, but really focusing on, the ultimate impact of success for the CEI is the impact that it has on the LGBTQ plus worker. So finding those stories and sharing, the ultimate impact of the CEI, which is on the LGBTQ plus worker. And then finally, protecting workers in the community, continuing to provide resources that I'll share at the end of this webinar, but making sure that our LGBTQ plus folks continue to be protected in the workplace. So alongside this moment that we're meeting, the CEI is one component of our approach. And for the CEI, I know we have folks who may have heard of the CEI and maybe actually completing the survey for their company on this workshop, but also folks that may not really know the CEI. So again, the CEI was created in 2002, and it functions around these four key pillars. The first being non-discrimination protection. So making sure that in companies' employment non-discrimination policies, the terms sexual orientation and gender identity are included as protected classes. Now, before the Bostock Supreme Court decision of 2020, this was a huge component of the CEI, but thankfully, because of the Bostock decision, where we see protections protected, the non-discrimination protections are a smaller part of the CEI scoring rubric, but they still continue to be there because it's something we've been asking for since 2002, and we will continue to ask for as a measure of good business for our participating companies. The next pillar is our equitable benefits, equal benefits for spouses and partners, and also our transition-related care. So in this section, it's about 50 points in the CEI, so half the survey, but we're actually asking, what benefits do you provide that provide equitable benefits for LGBTQ plus folks? And so if you provide any benefits, do you also provide those benefits to same and different sex spouses and same and different sex domestic partners? And I'm not sure if folks know, but across the country, there are not non-discrimination protections enshrined in public accommodation, credit, jury service, et cetera. And so in housing, et cetera. And so we at HRC continue to advocate for domestic partner benefits for both same and different sex partnerships so that there's not a public document, because in marriage, that is a state document. And so we ask our companies to have a non-state registered option so that if folks are in states where these protections don't exist, they can still gain access to these benefits, but they don't potentially risk discrimination to happen to them. Alongside this, in our equitable benefits section, we also ask about transition-related care and whether companies provide transition-related care to their LGBTQ plus or trans employees specifically. And then finally, we also ask about an LGBTQ plus health benefits guide. I'll dive into that in a second as well. Our third pillar of the CEI is supporting an inclusive culture, and this is more about, what internal practices that a company can practices and policies that a company can implement to be more inclusive. So if you have training for training for employees, does that cover non-discrimination protections for based on sexual orientation and gender identity? Or if you have a gender transition guideline that supports transitioning staff in your workplace, that provides both information for the transitioning staffer, but also information for your HR department or your manager on how to navigate an employee's transition. We also ask about data collection. Does your HR office, or your HR information system or an anonymous survey capture demographic information so that you could potentially assess what LGBTQ plus folks are feeling in your workplace? And then finally, do you have an LGBTQ plus ERG? And I know a few folks here are probably a part of their own LGBTQ plus ERG, but we know that these are sources for folks to find community in the workplace. And so we do ask about that in the CEI as well. And then finally, our corporate social responsibility section. I normally, the nomenclature of this feels better to be outreach and engagement when I explain it to folks, but ultimately, what are you doing outwardly to share your LGBTQ plus inclusion efforts with the greater community? So thinking about, if you do recruitment, do you recruit specifically to the LGBTQ plus community? If you do marketing and advertising, what does that look like? If you incorporate LGBTQ plus folks into those ads, etc. Do you have any products and services you provide? If you're a retailer, do you have LGBTQ, Pride merchandise that you put out during the Pride season? Or if I saw one example where a banking company was providing specific services to LGBTQ plus folks in domestic partnerships, and that was a service that they provided and a specific brochure and advisor that they held and provided for folks in domestic partnerships to navigate their banking needs. Alongside that, we also collect information on if there's any philanthropic support that companies provide to LGBTQ plus folks, to LGBTQ plus organizations, and then also if there's any advocacy or legislative efforts that companies implement as well. So those are really, the big four pillars of the CEI that ultimately kind of dive into different aspects of the company, but really get a well-rounded approach to LGBTQ plus inclusion. And back in 2002, we didn't ask as many questions because there weren't these fundamental protections in place. And now that we're in this space in 2025, we can ask these questions in order to provide, again, a roadmap for companies to provide good, a welcoming and affirming workplace for LGBTQ plus individuals. So diving into this year's CEI 2025 specifically, this year we rated 1,449 companies, with 376 of them being Fortune 500 companies. And we're thrilled to say that this year we had 72 new participating companies in the CEI, which is a 4.7% growth in the number of companies rated. And as I mentioned, with this year's CEI, we saw just a lot of misinformation being shared about what the Corporate Equality Index is and does. So for our report this year, we really wanted to re-educate and refocus what the CEI is and does. So in our report that you can access at hrc.org/CEI, and I have the link on every slide, so just in case you don't capture it right here, and sorry to the team for not providing this link to provide in the chat, but very easy to get to, hrc.org/CEI. The first is our facts about the CEI section, where we share what the CEI measures, what the purpose of the CEI is, the principles, and why the CEI matters. We also share what the CEI does not do. This way, as folks on the other side try to share a story that is untrue, we share up front, right? The CEI, you can see in the second paragraph, second section, but the CEI does not create unfair advantages for LGBTQ plus employees. It's about parity. So we thought it very important to let folks know that this is not, what it's being mischaracterized as. The next section that we had in the CEI and added to the report is our landscape of workplace inclusion, where I share a little bit about what I shared earlier in this workshop, the landscape of workplace inclusion and diversity, equity, inclusion efforts. That section has since needed an update. It was published on January 7th when we released the CEI, but as we all know, things have changed in that since then. But that section, defined workplace inclusion and its environment at the time there. And then finally, and I think Ryan and I will talk about this a bit more, but really, again, the ultimate measure of the CEI's success is the impact on the daily experiences of LGBTQ plus employees. So we decided to share actual stories from employees. Of course, we changed names to protect privacy, but of the impact of the CEI on their day-to-day. And one example is Carlos and Thomas, who built a family because their employer had family formation benefits available that they could access to build their family. And so we thought it very important to share the impact of the CEI with the greater community and the world. Diving into a little bit of the data for the CEI. So overall, with our 1,449 companies that are rated in the CEI, this is about 22 million employees in the US that are covered by, included in the CEI. And 98% of our our rated companies have non-discrimination protections in place for that include sexual orientation and gender identity. And we're really proud of that. When we think about domestic partner benefits, about 76% of our companies continue to provide domestic partner benefits. We think as I mentioned, because there are not non-discrimination protections in place for folks outside of the workplace, we want to make sure that companies continue to provide this benefit. I mentioned this briefly, but we have a new criteria that we added 2 years ago, and I'm really excited to share. It's our LGBTQ plus health benefits guide. This is a guide that's a one-stop shop ultimately for LGBTQ plus employees to access information on dependent eligibility, HIV and PrEP information, transition-related care. I can't share examples, but ultimately companies have created many of these brochures that just make it very easy for LGBTQ plus folks to access what benefits are available to them. They don't have to out themselves in order to access these benefits. And most excitingly, in just 1 year, we've seen a 25% increase in the number of companies from what was an amazing 873 companies that provided this benefits guide in the first year that we asked for it. Now we have over 1,000 companies that have a benefits guide available to their LGBTQ plus employees. In looking at transition-related care, we first started asking about this in the 2006 CEI, and in 2009, it became part of the scored components of the CEI. So you can see back in 2009, we only had 46 companies that provided transition-related care, and thrilled to share that we have 1,317 companies that provide transition-related care and have at least one plan that offers transition-related care to their employees. Also sharing our family formation benefits, 91% of companies have equivalency in the provision of this benefit. And to get into the nuance of this is one of those cases where we're looking for equivalency, not preferential treatment for LGBTQ plus folks in family formation benefits. So that means that if you provide this benefit of any of the family formation benefits, so surrogacy, adoption, IVF, infertility treatments, if you provide those benefits, they must be provided for same and different sex spouses and same and different sex partners. And so if it's not provided for anyone, then we would not, quote, ding a company or remove points if they did not provide that. There's equivalency in the fact that no one has provided a benefit. But in this case, if you do provide that benefit, it does need to be provided in order to receive credit to both same and different sex spouses and partners. And then finally, another wonderful place where we've seen growth in the CEI is our gender transition guidelines. So as I mentioned, this is guidance for a transitioning employee, their manager, and their HR department that guides an employee through their transition in the workplace. And so as you can see on this slide, we've gotten another great year with 14% more companies providing this gender transition guide. And with that, all of this means that our companies are really engaged in the CEI, and it's not just a survey that you complete and just stuff into the file cabinet just to say you did the Corporate Equality Index. We're really excited to share that we have 765 companies that earned a score of 100 in the CEI this year, which is a 28% increase in the number of companies that earned a 100 in the CEI. So we're really thrilled that in just 1 year, we were able to see this great increase in the number of companies achieving the score. And it goes to show that, again, it's not just about, checking off that the survey was completed. It's about engaging with the tool and increasing workplace inclusion for LGBTQ plus folks. And we're not the only ones excited about this. These companies getting a score of 100. They themselves are also excited about this. And so this is just a sample of all of the social media shares about the CEI and about the Equality 100 award that companies earned. And we actually brought folks together in New York a few weeks ago. And you can see this packed room of executives and leaders that were really excited about both their company achieving a score of 100, but also about the work, ultimately about the work of LGBTQ plus inclusion. So, we were really thrilled to bring folks together and to celebrate the work that everyone is doing to increase workplace inclusion. So with that, I will share, check out the CEI. You can go to hrc.org/CEI, check out our digital report. And as you can see here, we have an employer search tool where you can see the breakdown of any company score. It's not in the screenshot. I didn't want to capture the whole page, but in this, you would be able, on the employer search, you could actually see individual breakdowns of each subsection of the CEI and where a company rated. Whew, that was all a lot. One last thing I'll also want to share is a few resources that you may be working at companies that already have somebody working on the CEI, and but you're maybe wondering, well, what can I do, or what resources can I have in order to take back to my company? So I just wanted to take a moment to share a few other resources that we're providing through our workplace program at HRC. One of them is our LGBTQ plus corporate citizen report. And so this is a framework for companies to increase their allyship. When we think about the CEI, workplace inclusion and our corporate citizen report, there are really 6 pillars of corporate citizenship, and the CEI is under number 1 in workforce. So there are really, 6 or 5 other categories where we share resources on how companies can step up their allyship in supply chain and products and services, marketing, philanthropy, or advocacy and political engagement. So you can scan the QR code on the screen, and we'll also share links in the chat if you need to access this information. We also have we also wanted to share our Equality Hub. You can scan the QR code here, but this is a tool for I would say for workers, if they're interested to know what's going on. I just checked it out this morning, and we have some resources about the executive orders and how they apply. So this is what we have at HRC as a hub to provide information to folks about what's currently going on. So I highly suggest accessing this. I believe you can log in and gain access to our AM read and get that emailed to you. This way you can just stay up to date on LGBTQ plus issues, not only in the workplace, but across the movement. And then if you have any folks that are, or if you have any stories that you'd like to share with us, we have this Workers at HRC inbox that could capture these stories if folks were interested in sharing. And then finally, one last piece that we share is our Employee Guide to Advocacy 101. And this is a tool that we shared out earlier last year, but also feel free to scan it now. And it's about advocating in the workplace. And so, thinking about potentially, like, if you are not a part of an ERG, number one, potentially joining your ERG, and then secondly, staying the course and continuing to push for LGBTQ plus workplace inclusion. There may be a policy or practice that you don't see in place at your workplace. And so this tool provides resources on how to navigate those conversations on internal workplace inclusion. And then there's a component that could be external workplace inclusion for you as an individual. And I think about what the Chamber Day that Ryan mentioned on March 24th and 25th, right? That's that external engagement that you may want to participate in outside of the workplace, but there's also that internal engagement. So please access these resources. And as we've shared in the chat, we've got a ton of resources there. But with that, Ryan, I will shift the stage back to you. And I'm ready for any questions that you may have.
Awesome. So thanks, Marcos, for going through all that. And one of the things I want to start with is just kind of going back to what you really detailed with each of the criteria that is in the CEI, that these are really based on real people and real needs. You know, when we're asking for family formation benefits, that's because there are LGBT people who are trying to form families, and they're sometimes encountering policies that only allows heterosexual couples to use those benefits, right? And so all we're asking is, if the benefits exist, make sure they're equally available to everyone. And there are other, benefits and policies that have direct impact on transgender people, non-binary people, and others in the workplace. So I just want to kind of go back to that and sort of talk a little bit more about what it really means that these criteria aren't arbitrary. They really are directly impactful for our community.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. When we think about the criteria in the CEI, we really we look at what are emerging trends in the movement, what are emerging trends in corporations. We work in lockstep with our corporate partners to say, if we were to implement or add something to our scoring rubric, would that be, how would that look at your company? Could you implement that? And also, like, ultimately, because we're thinking about our community members, right? HRC is about its members and supporters and advocating for them. And we do that through our Corporate Equality Index work. And so we work in lockstep with our corporate partners to implement that. One of our stories in one of the impact stories is actually, I'm thinking through if actually I actually ended up publishing it. I'm not releasing anything private at this moment, but one of the stories that I did read was an employee who found their ERG and then in that time was transitioning in the workplace, and their workplace did not have a gender transition guideline in place. So one, they joined their ERG, found community members to talk to about this, and then went to HR and worked with HR on creating a plan that they then used to navigate their transition, right? And so, that's a sign of advocacy, one, but two, it's also about, bringing your company along and that impact on the individual employee, and ultimately at this person's workplace, future employees, because now their HR department is prepared and their managers are prepared to navigate that transition.
Yeah, exactly. And we at the Chamber here in Houston really do believe that your benchmark is that your tool is the best benchmark out there. And so while I know that a few companies, a handful of them, have maybe distanced themselves from it, we're actually proud that some of our chamber members have actually really leaned in and worked towards getting that 100 score. And we always encourage folks, even if they aren't a major employer, at least look at what the CEI is pointing to as a roadmap for their company. Even if they're a small employer, they could still at least work towards some of those policies and benefits to mirror what you're doing at that 500 and more employee size.
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely. And and one of the things is, it's such a, and I had mentioned this on my slide deck, but it's a very small minority of companies that have stepped away. And when I get into conversations like this, folks say, do you have that list? And I say, if you Google it, you can see it. Where, I mean, it's as small as what is reported in these articles. It's a very small, we've got 1449 companies rated in the CEI, and it's you can put all the companies currently in an article. That's how small. And it's not because it's an Excel spreadsheet. That's kind of it. You can name them and it fits into a paragraph. So it's a very small number of companies, but there's also that the work continues. you know, that companies are still engaged, not only, you know, in their participation in the CEI, but despite that participation in the CEI, continuing to do this work. And I think that's in part due to the advocacy of their employees, but also because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. And to that point, you lead me to my next one, which is that this changing landscape is actually an opportunity. Because as some companies may be renaming or changing sort of their nomenclature and what they're saying internally and how they're naming things, there is still a longer arc. You know, you're going back to early 2000s when you started the CEI, but like the work for workplace equality didn't start then either. I mean, we're talking 30, 40 years of efforts to change workplace inclusion. And as you showed in the corporate citizenship report, you know, it's the workplace equality, but it's also supply chain, which is really important to us at the chamber, making sure that folks are working with minority-owned businesses and particularly the LGBT BE certified folks. But you know, let's think ahead, not backward, and think about what the opportunity is ahead for, you know, the new workforce that's coming up, and where, you know, we could see, you know, companies kind of adapting and being ready for the next generation of workers, and what we expect to see.
Yeah. You know, as I mentioned, I'm thinking through multiple points of this. I think one is, yes, the work continues, and you know, we're seeing the work continues, and there is still active engagement from companies in providing equitable benefits to LGBTQ plus employees. I want to leave folks with that. Like, I don't want folks to feel like our companies are stepping away. It is again a very small minority. But then a second to your second point, 30% of the of Gen Z is identifying as LGBTQ plus, and you know, we've got allies that are more aware of inclusion efforts than ever before. And with, you know, again, that $1.4 trillion in buying power, folks are alert and aware and very conscious of, one, where they want to work, and two, where they want to spend their dollars. And so, you know, the CEI, thankfully, because of its history over 20 years, folks know, either through the name Corporate Equality Index or the best places to work, as some folks may like to colloquially call it, they know to come to us to say, where should I be spending my dollars? And also, where do I want to work? And so, you know, it's very important to continue this work, to stay the course and increase inclusion, because you know, this upcoming workforce is more attuned to what's going on than any other generation. Even though I want to say that millennials are the best, you know, I think Gen Z knows how to access information and knows exactly what they want, and they're not afraid to tell you. And I think this is one place where we could say to corporations, you know, it's important to include the LGBTQ plus community, because they're looking out for this.
Yeah. And more broadly than that, you know, the chamber here in Houston, we're actually seeing some of our partners really recommit to this work. And that's where, you know, we've got HP and HEB, which are some consumer facing brands, but they're supporting our chamber. We have many folks on the call who are supporting other chambers around the state. And those companies are saying, look, we're committed to this work. So that also then means there's an opportunity for us, both at HRC and as chambers, to kind of commit to some partnerships. So talk a little bit more about what you all are doing, and kind of HRC's commitment to not going anywhere. Because we certainly at the chamber here in Houston are committed to staying this course.
You know, folks may have heard, you know, that HRC is currently undergoing a little bit of a reorganization, but, you know, we are focusing our efforts on 4 key things: policy, politics, policy, politics, schools, and workplaces. Workplaces are one of the key focus areas for HRC as an organization going forward. And I think a lot of it is built on what we experienced, early on in the movement or earlier on in the movement. The Workplace Equality Program was one of the first program, not one of the, was the first program of the foundation side of the Human Rights Campaign. It started in 1998, and 4 years later, our Corporate Equality Index came out. And so we've been here through 98 was Clinton, yes, 98 was Clinton. So think through Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, and Trump. And so we've been here through many moments in the movement, advocating with our corporate partners, and our corporate partners have stood alongside us through some, advocacy hills and mountains that we had to get through. I think back to Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and Defense of Marriage Act, and marriage equality itself, and all of these points. Companies have been with us as we've gone through this journey, and we hope that they stay with us going forward. They are with us, as we saw in the slide deck, but also we are alongside with our corporate partners. If you all have folks that are interested in talking to our teams about workplace inclusion, please feel free to reach out to us through Ryan or to us at cei@hrc.org. But we as an organization are committed to continuing this work because we know the power of the corporate voice.
Yeah, and to that end, here at our chamber, that's one of the reasons why we have the Workplace Alliance program, is to try and create a sense of community through these different companies, so folks don't feel quite as siloed as they do this important work in each of their companies. And then, beyond that, that's why we work with our chamber partners around the state. And just another plug to folks that we will be doing the Texas Chamber Lobby Day coming up in March. So please keep an eye out for those invitations, because that's an opportunity for you all to come together and join us and create more of a collective voice than each of us maybe doing this on our own. So my last point before we go to Q&A would just be to really talk about the fact that, and we've kind of hit on this already, we are committed, and there's a sense of resolve that has come from our conversations together, but also as we talk to other folks in the space. Sometimes this work may look a little different or sound a little different, but things like the CEI are here to stay. Our work at the chambers is got to continue and will continue, as Tammy mentioned at the beginning. So do you have any other sort of closing thoughts as we kind of lean in on this resolve and hope moment?
Yeah, you've kind of already taken what I would have said in response to the question, which is we are here, we will stick around, and we are continuing to do this work because it is ultimately important to LGBTQ plus individuals, to applicants, to employees, and we will get through this as we've gotten through. As our leadership team reminds us here as HRC staff, that we have been here for over 40 years, and we will continue to be here and continue to do this work. And there have been moments that felt difficult previously, and we've gotten through them, and we will get through this one as well. And in this sense, with the partners that we have on this call, happy to extend a hand if folks need any resources from us or any information. Please, utilize all of the resources that you have, and also reach out to Ryan if you need to get in contact with our team directly, so that we can continue the movement.
Thanks, Marcus. So with that, I'm going to have Maureen pause the recording for us. Marcus, one last time. Thank you, Marcus, for joining us again today and for all your knowledge and information. We really appreciate you taking the time. We know HRC is working on restructuring right now, so we appreciate you all prioritizing this work. For those that are in Texas, we really encourage you to join us for the lobby days in Austin on March 24th and 25th. We also want to be sure to thank our partners again, both HEB and HP, for their support of our Workplace Alliance throughout the year. Lastly, I'll just have Maureen put up the slide that shows my contact info if anyone has questions. We'll be glad to help connect you to the resources. We'll be sending out the links after this. And then this will be available on our Chamber YouTube. So check it out. If you think somebody from your company, whether it's a HR or DEI professional, or maybe your other ERG colleagues could benefit from this, be sure to grab the video once we have it uploaded. And we will thank everyone for being here and have a great day.